can't keep up.
South Dakota is known for pheasants, but hosting native son Mark Kayser's after big bucks on this episode of Winchester Whitetail Revolution.
It's a shooter buck.
Winchester's Whitetail Revolution is brought to you by Winchester Ammunition, the American legend. Otis Technologies, the most advanced gun care system in the world. Code Blue, perfecting the science of hunting. Winchester Rifles and Shotguns, the guns that work. Bushnell Optics, magnify life. It's hard enough to believe that the almost treeless prairies of South Dakota hold good whitetail, let alone give them plenty of places to hide. But that's something host Mark Kayser knows well about his home state. The Warne Ranch, where Kayser's hunting deer, lies in the gently rolling farm and grazing lands just outside South Dakota's capital city of Pierre.
You know, I'm a native of South Dakota, so anytime I get the chance to come back, my truck's headed to the east. And it usually ends up at my good pal's place, Cody Warne.
We run both a farming and cattle operation and a hunting operation. We run about 8,000 acres. It's been in my family since 1904.
Now, when you get to Cody's place, the first thing you think about are pheasants, because there are just pheasants everywhere.
11 years ago, there was, hundreds of pheasants around and, maybe 100 or 200 deer. Now, there's thousands of pheasants.
If you get to digging a little deeper, you're gonna find big whitetails. Now, when you drive into this place, you think, where do whitetails hide, and how could there be good whitetail hunting in just this open grassland?
And the deer, when they winter here, it's probably up close to 1,000 head. The more cover we plant for pheasant hunting, the deer kind of benefit off that too. A lot of the cover and food plots that we plant for the pheasants, the deer come in, at night, and we'll feed off of that. The majority of them bed out in their sunflowers and cut cornfields and stuff.
There's scattered deer everywhere. I'm just running into groups here and there, lone bucks. There's some little rolls there. So what I have to do, I gotta cut that distance at least in half and then hope they work towards me. Looking into the sun, they don't see us. There's some deer running right at us. I don't see any bucks. Oh, wow. Hey, look at that. Gotta rattle them in and get them coming our way. There's a buck out in that field right there with some does. Just gonna see what he is. 120 class. There's some more over here. Man, there's just deer spread out everywhere here. In that tall grass, they show up every once in a while. There we go, right there. I'm gonna have to get closer to those deer just to see what they are.
Mark, check this out.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that something?
Look at that. Gosh, just look at the circumference on that, how big it was. Well, let's go find the buck that made that road.
A hunter can wait years for the buck of a lifetime, but to take that deer, he may have to wait just a little longer. The right stand at the right time can be ruined by a rushed shot. Listen to Whitetail Insider Mike Hanbeck tell the story of how patience won one hunter an astounding record book non-typical.
Maryland slug gun hunter Bill Crutchfield climbed into his stand and heard sloshing in a swamp behind him. He turned to see an enormous buck bed down just 100 yards away. Bill wanted to take the shot, but all he could see was a giant rack sticking up out of the cover. An hour later, another buck came in and the monster stood up. Bill fired and his Winchester slug hit home. The massive non-typical had 26 points, 22-inch spread, and scored 268 points. Bill's monster beat the old state record by an astounding 40 inches gross. The lesson here is that patience is often rewarded when hunting big bucks. Bill didn't jump the gun and take a poor shot, or get out of the stand and try to stalk the buck. He waited until the giant stood up, and then he made his best shot count. For his patience, Bill got the all-time state record in Maryland non-typical and one of the biggest, baddest bucks ever killed on the East Coast. For more great big buck action, check us out on the web at versuscountry.com.
Hey Mark, check this out.
Jeez. Oh my gosh.
Isn't that something?
Look at that.
Look at all those shavings around the bottom of it. So you can see where they've been pawing on the dirt there.
Oh man. There's enough kindling here to start a fire. Look at that.
Yeah.
This is definitely one of those rubs that they hit year after year.
Oh yeah, yep. They just keep working them. A lot of times you'll see those posts where they'll come to a point where they've actually rubbed it and it's broken in half.
Well, and you can tell, you know, looking around here, there's just nothing for them to rub on.
Right.
So they find these fence posts like this. Well, let's go find the buck that made that road.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
In the mornings, the whitetails would be out feeding, but even before shooting light, they'd be making their way back into those sunflowers. And once they got in there, there was no way of getting after them. Now, our first morning, we had a good encounter with a buck. It was right at sunrise. We'd worked up to a sunflower field. We knew these deer were coming back into the sunflower to bed during the day. Cruising back to the sunflower fields, trying to get there. Let's see what we got. There he comes. I don't think he's a shooter, though. He's too small. Boy, even these young bucks, they're wanting to get to those sunflowers. And you know that's where the security is. You know those big bucks, those mature bucks are in there. The rest of that day, just kind of flat. We didn't have many close encounters. We were seeing deer, we were seeing a lot of deer, but just not the deer. And the reason? The deer, the big bucks, the mature bucks, they knew they were safe in those sunflower fields. The young bucks, they were just scattered around, doing what they usually do, being in the open, being kind of stupid. We had to get aggressive. Rattle. We're right on the edge of these standing sunflowers. We got a lot of grass here in this little draw coming up to the sunflowers. There could be deer in any of these little spots. Now late in that day, what a surprise. I was sneaking around this dam grade and up jumps an antlered animal. God, what is that? It's not a deer, it's an elk. Look at that. It's going out in the sunflower field. Huh. That is wild. Look at that. It's a young bull. Huh. Every once in a while those bulls get to wander, and that's what must have happened. That's cool. How if I can just get a whitetail to do that? That's cool. I'm just gonna ease up here and set up for the night. That was the highlight of the hunt. Until later. But up until then, seeing an elk in pheasant country surely was something that was gonna be hard to beat. With the standing crops putting a big obstacle on our hunt, we decided that we better move to another area. Just check it out. Cody had a spot closer to the Missouri River. Big rolling grassland, a beautiful wooded creek through it, the type of spot where a big whitetail might hide out. Now, as we started on this hunt, we weren't up against big sunflower fields. I maybe might see an elk again, but the thing we were running into were mule deer, and this was a whitetail hunt. Now, my tag was good for whitetail or mule deer. Oh, wow. That's a pretty good muley right there. Man, look at them all. I'd probably take that muley. I wished he was a whitetail right now. Huh. There he goes. Yep, I gotta keep looking for a whitetail. No big whitetails were at home that day, and back at camp I decided it was time to make a plan and head back to the sunflower fields in hope a big buck would poke his head out. Of course, back in sunflower country, it was the same old story. The big bucks were going in early and the little bucks were showing themselves out in the middle of the fields. That is until I spotted a big buck slipping out midday. That's a shooter buck. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to keep up with him. If he goes out of sight there, I'm gonna try to hustle around this hill. There he goes. There he goes. And he kept trucking and trucking and trucking. Hey, that's the story of this open country. These big bucks, when they've got something on their mind, they can go a long way without a stop. Can't keep up with him. He's gonna go over that next hill, and over that next hill is a sunflower field. That was the buck right there. That was the one. Back to the drawing board. I have to go watch sunflower field again tonight, the edge. Here we go, right there.
Winchester's Whitetail Revolution is brought to you by Winchester Ammunition, the American legend. Otis Technologies, the most advanced gun care system in the world. Code Blue, perfecting the science of hunting. Winchester Rifles and Shotguns, the guns that work. Bushnell Optics, magnify life. Leasing land is becoming a more prominent feature of hunting, but is it good or bad for hunters and game? Here are the pros and cons.
We live in a very dynamic time in changes dealing with hunting as well as human populations and land uses. And one of the things that's happened over the last several years, may have started in Texas or the Southeast, is the fact that a group of hunters get together, go to a landowner and say, you know, we'd like to lease this property to have the exclusive hunting rights on those.
Here's a big threat to hunting as I see it, leased land. When I was a kid, you'd go knock on a door, ask for permission to hunt. 9 times out of 10 you would get it. You know, if you weren't obviously some crazy looking, might gonna steal the guy's cattle or something, you could get on the place. Responsible neighbors were allowed to hunt Because everyone, I think, in those days realized that wildlife belonged to the people. It's not owned by the guy who owns the land.
There are good points and bad points, but I think there tend to be a lot more good points about it. Yes, hunting is expensive, but if you look at the cost of hunting, even if you hunt on a package hunt, a leased property, a hunting club, compare that in terms of the revenue that an individual has these days to what was done back in the 40s and 50s, you'll find that the percentage spent on hunting on those sort of things is the same amount.
What happens when every little landowner fences his property off and says, it's mine, it's all mine, and I like deer, but I don't like antelope, so I'm gonna have all the antelope shot and only have deer. Or I'm just gonna allow my friends to hunt here.
Keeping that land in a situation to where it can provide and produce wildlife in any great numbers is an expensive deal to begin with. That's one of the reasons leased hunting has become very important in the overall scheme of hunting, because it's preserving habitat.
There's lots of options, but those are shrinking every year as our population increases, our land base decreases, the wildlife populations get scrunched. I don't know, we've got to start looking at this stuff really soon.
This is a question that affects all hunters, so tell us what you think by logging on to www.versuscountry.com.
Now, committed to the sunflower fields, we still stayed on the edge, but I worked out into more of an open picked field. Even though the standing ones are next to it, I hope that some of those deer would move out into that picked open cover and hopefully do some browsing. So late one afternoon, we spotted these deer. They were out in the picked fields. We had a great grassy fence line to sneak along, and I decided, you know what, if they see me, they see me. If they don't, we might just get a shot. So I hunkered down, worked down that fence line, and the deer, you know what, they actually did see me. That's our target right there. Those deer out in that stubble sunflower field, they've left the security of the standing sunflowers. But we're gonna have to get closer, and in this open country, it's gonna be tough. And as I worked up that fence line, one buck, he caught my movement and decided he was gonna come over and check it out and see if I was a doe. So as he was coming up, I got down lower, crawled under the fence, and set up. Right down out in that cut sunflower field. Finally, we got a buck that would stay out in the open out of these sunflowers. These sunflowers just been killing us. At the crack of the shot, boom, he was off like a racehorse. I knew I'd made a good hit, but boy, he made me think twice as he ran and ran and ran. Down one of these rows somewhere. He ran out into here. What a nice buck. Whew. God, there's a fighter. He's got his broken brow tine. Nice big heavy body deer. Good rack on him, good brow. Too bad he doesn't have that other brow. Man, this has been an exciting hunt out here in these sunflowers. And the season is coming to a close to top it all off. And it's a great way just to end a great hunt like this in this farm country, because these sunflowers have been driving me crazy on this hunt. Walking out to that buck, flushing the pheasants, watching all the pheasants at sunset, I made up my mind right there. I was gonna come back and have a crack at all these pheasants. I'd had a good hunt on the whitetail, in fact, a great hunt on the whitetail. But I definitely wanted to make sure I had a side of pheasant when I made a loin roast this winter to remember this hunt by.
All whitetail. All the time. Online at versus.com/whitetail.